At my brother's promotion dinner, I was seated at the kids' table. Plastic chairs, no place setting. Just a flimsy paper tag taped to the corner of the tablecloth that read, Jessica, unemployed and unwanted. Laughter rolled across the room like a wave. His boss, a broad man with a smug grin and too much cologne, pointed in my direction and chuckled. She actually came? He said it loud enough for the whole room to hear. I stood up slowly, my wine glass still in hand. I locked eyes with the man who held my brother's career in his sweaty palms. If I were you, I whispered, I'd check your stock prices. The room didn't go silent. Not yet. But someone choked on their drink, and for the first time that evening, my brother stopped smiling. 6 months earlier, I wasn't unemployed. I was head of compliance for a mid-sized fintech firm, a job that demanded 12-hour days, regulatory audits, and zero room for error. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real, and I was good at it. I'd worked my way up from intern to department head in just 5 years. The kind of rise that doesn't come from favors or networking, but from showing up when no one else would. Weekends, holidays, late nights, all logged in spreadsheets, all for a company that told me I was family. And then, one Tuesday afternoon, the CFO walked into my office and shut the door. Jessica, this isn't personal, he said, not meeting my eyes. We're restructuring. Your role has been consolidated. Consolidated. I had spent 5 years building that role from scratch. I packed my things in silence. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just went home, opened a bottle of wine, and stared at the blinking cursor of my untouched resume. My brother, Thomas, didn't call that week. Didn't text. Didn't ask how I was. He'd always been the golden child. Straight A's, captain of the debate team, fast-tracked into the tech world through Dad's connections. I didn't resent him. Not at first. But growing up, I was always Thomas's sister. Not Jessica. Not a person with her own dreams. Just an accessory to his shining resume. Still, I supported him. Every step of the way. I clapped the loudest at his college graduation. I bought him champagne when he landed his job at Vantage Systems. I even reviewed the fine print of his first equity agreement. Pro bono. So when I lost my job, a single message from him would have meant something. Instead, 2 weeks later, I got a glossy invitation in the mail. You are cordially invited to celebrate Thomas Langford's promotion to executive director, hosted by Vantage Systems. The envelope was addressed to Miss Jessica Langford. No guest, no +1, just me, alone. You're not seriously going, are you? That was Claire, my best friend since college. We were sitting on her couch, surrounded by empty takeout containers and judgment. You don't go where you're not wanted. That's a rule. I looked at the card again. The company logo gleamed in raised ink. The venue? An exclusive rooftop overlooking downtown. The kind of place you only get access to if you're either rich, important, or someone's pawn. Maybe I want to remind him who helped him get there, I said, folding the invitation in half. Besides, I have nothing to lose. The night of the dinner, I wore a tailored navy dress. Clean, sharp lines. Hair pinned. Heels that hurt like hell. I wasn't there to impress anyone. I was there to observe. The room was filled with suits, champagne, and conversations layered in ego. People I had once emailed with. People I had helped through audits, all pretending not to recognize me. Then I saw the table. Small, off to the side. Decorated like a joke. Paper plates and cheap party favors like someone's idea of fun. And there it was, my place card. Jessica, unemployed and unwanted. The words were handwritten. Carefully. It wasn't a mistake. It was intentional. That's just cruel, said a quiet voice behind me. It was a woman I didn't know. An intern, maybe. Her eyes were wide. Did they really put that on purpose? I didn't answer. I just walked straight to the center of the room, where Thomas stood clinking his glass with a spoon. Behind him stood his boss, the man who'd laughed. I'd like to raise a toast, Thomas was saying. to the people who matter most. And that's when I interrupted. Not loudly. Just enough for the people around us to hear. If I were you, I said to the CEO, I'd check your stock prices. He didn't laugh this time, because 2 hours later, an investor alert went out. And by Monday morning, Vantage Systems was under financial scrutiny. And I wasn't unemployed anymore. The taxi ride home after the dinner was silent. I stared out the window while the city lights blurred past, my hands still clenched around that place card. Unemployed and unwanted. Not just a joke, a message, a declaration, one my own brother was too spineless to stop. I didn't cry. I was too focused for that. Because somewhere between the laughter and the toast, I'd remembered who I used to be. The quiet girl with the clipboard at compliance meetings. The one who caught 3 internal fraud cases in 4 years. The one who'd flagged suspicious activity that saved the firm over $9 million in fines. They thought I was invisible. And that made me dangerous. Back at home, I pulled up my old laptop. The one I hadn't opened since my termination. It was still full of bookmarked portals, SEC filings, industry databases, habits of a mind that never truly shut off. Vantage Systems. I typed it in and watched their investor site load. They'd gone public 2 years earlier. A modest IPO, respectable growth. But I remembered something about them even before that. My old company had considered partnering with them. We'd conducted due diligence, and I had seen a red flag. Back then, it had been a small detail, a discrepancy in vendor contracts and R&D allocation. Too small to matter at the time. But now, I had time. I had motive. And I had nothing left to lose. The next morning, Sunday, I started digging. Vantage's Q3 filings were clean, almost too clean. Consistent revenue growth, minimal losses. But the breakdown of their licensing income didn't match the patent activity I was tracking through the Federal Registry. That wasn't just odd. It was potentially misleading. They were recognizing income from software licenses that hadn't actually cleared final approval. In accounting terms, revenue pulled forward. Not illegal, but unethical. And if investors found out, it could get messy. The next thing I did was simple. I took screenshots, filed PDFs, created a burner email. Then I wrote a short anonymous tip and sent it to a watchdog blog run by ex-analysts. I didn't say much, just dropped a few numbers, a few keywords, enough to catch the eye of someone who knew what to look for. Licensing revenue discrepancies and inflated R&D valuations. Vantage Systems. Q3 might be worth a second glance. No signature, just initials. JL. Monday morning, I didn't expect much. But at 9:52 a.m., my phone buzzed with a news alert. Vantage Systems facing scrutiny over Q3 reporting practices after anonymous post goes viral on finance forums. By noon, their stock had dropped 3.5%. Not a crash, not yet, but enough to spook institutional investors. At 1:16 p.m., someone emailed my old consulting site, a private equity firm I'd worked with once, years ago. Jessica, not sure if you're still active, but we saw a breakdown online that looks a lot like your work. If you're open to consulting again, we have a situation that could use your eyes. And just like that, I wasn't unemployed anymore. That night, Thomas called me. The first time in months. Jess, he said, his voice tight. You were right. Something's happening. We got a memo about an internal audit. I didn't answer immediately. Did you know about this? He asked. There it was. The suspicion. The subtle fear. Why would I know anything, Thomas? I'm just the unwanted sister, remember? Silence. I didn't write that, he mumbled. But you didn't stop it. And that, I thought, was worse. By Wednesday, Vantage Systems stock had dipped 6.2%, and reporters had started poking around. They'd received anonymous documentation, some of which had come from me. I hadn't shared anything private. No confidential files. Just public records that told a very different story when looked at side by side. It wasn't about taking them down. Not yet. It was about reminding them that I see what they try to hide. By Friday, I had a new consulting contract. Short-term, high-paying. The kind of gig you land when people remember that behind the quiet compliance officer was a forensic mind. I didn't post about it. Didn't gloat. But I did buy myself a decent espresso machine. Small celebrations matter when you're rebuilding. And then, just as I sat down to catch my breath, I received a LinkedIn message from Vantage's CEO. Jessica, I'd like to speak privately, if possible. I think we may have started off on the wrong foot. No apology, just a forced olive branch. I smiled, because he didn't know what was coming next. The CEO thought I'd be flattered. He didn't realize the board already had my name. They weren't reaching out for small talk. They were about to make a desperate offer. And they had no idea how prepared I already was. The message from Vantage's CEO sat in my inbox all night. Jessica, I'd like to speak privately if possible. I think we may have started off on the wrong foot. He didn't include a phone number, just a vague invitation and a calendar link. At first, I ignored it. I wasn't in the mood for rehearsed charm or corporate backpedaling. But the next morning, an email from a different name popped up. Jessica, I'm reaching out on behalf of the board. We believe your insight could be valuable in light of recent market activity. Please let me know if you're open to a confidential conversation. That name, Elena Burns, rang a bell. Former SEC auditor, now a non-executive director at Vantage. And unlike the CEO, she was someone who actually read financial statements. I replied with a short sentence. I'm available Wednesday morning. Please send the NDA. The Zoom call was scheduled for 8:30 a.m. I dressed like I was going into battle. Fitted blazer, clean hair, eyes sharp. Even if they couldn't see my shoes, I wore heels. It's a mindset. When the screen blinked to life, I found myself facing not just Elena, but 3 other board members. All older, all male, all polite in that overly careful way that meant they were nervous. Thank you for joining us, Jessica, Elena said. We're aware you may have noticed certain inconsistencies in our reporting. You could say that, I replied. One of the board members leaned forward. We believe there may have been a series of oversights in how executive reports were assembled. I cut in calmly. Oversights don't usually show patterns across 3 consecutive quarters, and they don't line up perfectly with executive stock grants. The silence on the call stretched long. One of them cleared his throat. Look, we'll be candid, Elena said. The situation is escalating. We want to bring someone in to conduct an internal review. Quietly, discreetly. You want someone outside the company. Someone the regulators would trust. Someone with a clean record who understands both finance and compliance. They didn't say it outright, but I knew what they meant. The CEO's credibility was crumbling, and they needed someone to clean up before the real heat arrived. And you want me? I said. Elena nodded once. You flagged these patterns before anyone else. We believe you're uniquely positioned to help us. Contain this. It wasn't an apology. It was a job offer dressed as damage control. I asked for time to consider. I didn't need time. I ended the call and stared at my screen. This wasn't just about a consulting gig or a corporate cleanup. This was about the same man who let me be publicly humiliated, now being forced to acknowledge that I was the only person who could keep his empire from sinking. I dreamed about moments like this. But now that it was real, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt focused, ready, dangerous. I called Claire. Let me guess, she said. They want to hire you. Board wants an internal review, discreet, quiet, behind the CEO's back. And what do you want? I didn't answer right away, because I wasn't sure yet. Revenge? Closure? A seat at the table I'd been shoved away from? Or maybe I just wanted to remind them that ignoring people like me comes at a cost. I want the truth to have a voice, I said. Claire snorted. You sound like a movie trailer. I've been worse. That weekend, I met with Elena in person. A small cafe, no logos, no suits. She brought a folder. Inside, a preliminary scope, key personnel, initial concerns. She was careful with her words, but she didn't hide the fact that internal tensions were boiling. The CEO's been minimizing the numbers. The CFO is compliant or blind. We're not sure yet. And Thomas? I asked, sipping my coffee. Your brother? She glanced up, surprised. He's high on the internal shortlist for promotion. We assumed you knew. I froze. Promotion to what? Chief Strategy Officer, if things stabilize. So that's what this was. Thomas wasn't just some bystander in a bad culture. He was being groomed to rise even further, and that changed everything. Later that night, I pulled out my old compliance journals, the ones I used to keep when I was training staff on audit integrity. A line I'd written years ago jumped out at me. Numbers don't lie, but the people who present them do. And suddenly, I knew exactly what I had to do. When I walked into Vantage Systems that Monday morning, no one offered a welcome. There were no balloons, no introductions, no polite smiles. I wasn't an employee. I wasn't a guest. I was something else entirely, a threat they hadn't figured out how to classify yet. The board had kept my arrival confidential. I was officially hired as an external compliance consultant to assist with financial realignment. Translation: I was there to quietly examine the rot, and everyone knew it, especially Thomas. He found me in the break room around 10 a.m., holding a mug with the company logo I'd once celebrated for him with champagne. Jess, he said, trying too hard to sound casual. Didn't realize you'd actually taken the job. I didn't look up from the coffee machine. Didn't realize you were up for Chief Strategy Officer. His expression faltered for a split second. Not enough for most people to catch, but I knew my brother. I saw it. It's not official, he said. They're just exploring options. Options that include giving you access to long-term growth plans and financial structuring? He tensed. You think I had something to do with the discrepancies? No, I said calmly. I think you've had your head in the sand, which is almost worse. He opened his mouth, but I cut him off. Don't worry. I'm not here for revenge, Thomas. I'm here for facts. But if you're part of the numbers that don't add up, you'll be in the report, family or not. That shut him up. I spent the next 2 days combing through internal files. Unlike most consultants, I wasn't looking at the top-level summaries. I went deep, into buried emails, Slack threads, unpublished memos. The cracks were everywhere. Deferred expenses logged inconsistently. Third-party payments routed through shells with no clear deliverables. And most importantly, a pattern of strategic disclosures timed just before stock option vesting. It was textbook executive manipulation. Not enough to scream fraud yet, but more than enough to raise regulatory eyebrows. And guess whose name kept appearing in the periphery? Thomas. Not front and center. Never the one signing. But often CC'd. Often present. Always silent. He wasn't orchestrating the schemes, but he wasn't questioning them either. He was protecting his trajectory. And suddenly, the unemployed and unwanted place card made even more sense. They'd tried to discredit me because they knew what I might find if I ever looked too closely. On Wednesday, I met with Elena to debrief. The pattern is worse than I expected, I said, handing her a file. 3 quarters, at least 4 executives involved, and selective reporting that could expose you to serious liability if regulators catch it first. She leafed through the pages, her face tightening. How confident are you? Confident enough not to care who gets uncomfortable. She nodded. We'll need to present findings to the full board next week, quietly. There's one more thing, I added. Your CEO isn't just negligent. He's been consolidating internal influence, removing dissenters from decision-making, and he's trying to push my brother into a top-level role he's not qualified for. We were told Thomas was a stabilizing presence. He's a convenient presence, and I think he's being set up to take the fall. That gave her pause. Can you prove it? Not yet, I said. but I will. That night, I sat in my apartment with the files spread across my table. Claire texted to check in. "How's the mission going? Found the smoking gun yet?" "No gun," I replied. "Just a slow leak in the foundation." Because here's the thing people don't understand about corruption. It's not always loud, not always dramatic. It's subtle, structural, institutionalized. And people like Thomas, they don't create the corruption. They benefit from staying quiet about it. That's what made him dangerous. On Friday, I stayed late. Most of the building was empty. I logged into the shared network archive using credentials Elena had secured. And that's where I found it. A memo draft from the CEO's executive assistant, never sent, never published. Subject line, strategic PR plan, mitigating fallout from potential audit findings. In the draft, if the reporting structure becomes compromised, we suggest repositioning recent promotions, T. Langford, as central to ongoing transparency reforms. Their proximity to internal changes allows a controlled narrative. My brother was the insurance policy, a scapegoat with a polished resume and a family name that sounded like loyalty. They were going to use him, and then discard him if the heat got too close. I stared at the screen for a long time. Part of me wanted to protect him. The big sister instinct doesn't die easy. But then I remembered the smirk he wore when I walked out of that dinner, the silence when my name was mocked, the way he never asked if I was okay. "You made your bed, Thomas," I whispered. I received the email at 7:03 a.m. No subject line. No signature. Just one sentence. "You might want to think twice before submitting that report." There was no sender listed, just a scrambled relay domain I couldn't trace without forensic tools. But I didn't need to trace it. I knew what it meant. Someone inside Vantage Systems knew what I was doing, and they wanted me to stop. I stared at the screen for a full minute before closing my laptop. Not because I was scared, because I wasn't surprised. This is what happens when people in power feel exposed. They don't confront you directly. They isolate you. They cast doubt. They push back just enough to make you hesitate. But I didn't hesitate. I got dressed. Blazer, low heels, clear mind. If they wanted me out, they'd have to do more than send a veiled threat. That morning, Elena met me in a side conference room. I showed her the email. She didn't flinch. "They're testing you," she said calmly. "It means they're scared, which means you're close." How many people knew I was compiling the report? She considered that for a moment. Only the board. And Thomas. I raised an eyebrow. "You told my brother?" "Not directly," she said. "But your name came up in an executive prep meeting. The CEO asked about your presence. Thomas didn't speak up either way." Of course he didn't. Silence. His favorite form of loyalty. The report was nearly done. 48 pages. Detailed financial discrepancies, timelines, cross-referenced transaction logs, and a breakdown of misleading disclosures, all matched with documented executive activity. It wasn't just a slap on the wrist. If regulators saw this, Vantage Systems would face formal investigation within weeks. Stock prices would drop, executives would fall, possibly charges, and at the center of it, my brother's name. Not as a criminal, but as a bystander. A silent figure in rooms where the wrong decisions were being made. Was I willing to do that? To scorch the earth? Even if it meant burning him with it? That night, I left the office late. Again. The parking garage was nearly empty. I unlocked my car and slid into the driver's seat when I noticed something on the windshield. A printed piece of paper. Folded once. No note. No message. Just a single screenshot. A line from my report. A paragraph about Thomas. Highlighted. Someone had accessed my files. Someone wanted me to know that they could get to me. Or worse, that they could use my own work to discredit me. For the first time since this started, I felt it. Not fear, not guilt. Clarity. They weren't just protecting a company, they were protecting themselves. And people like me, women who weren't supposed to cause problems, we were expendable. But not this time. The next day, I met Thomas in the cafe across from the office. He was already seated, phone in hand, coffee untouched. He didn't look up when I sat down. "You made your point," he said. "Everyone's talking about your presence. The CEO's furious. You've made a mess. I'm cleaning one up." "At my expense?" I didn't blink. "You knew. You were in those meetings. You saw the numbers. That doesn't mean I caused anything." "No," I said softly. "It just means you let it happen. And now you want me to protect you." His jaw tightened. "I'm your brother, Jess. And I was your sister the night you watched them laugh at me. You said nothing then. Why should I protect you now?" He leaned forward, voice dropping. "You think exposing this will give you closure? You'll just be a footnote in another scandal. No one cares about compliance consultants, Jess." I stood. "They will when she's the one who saw it all coming." I left him there, his coffee untouched, his future unraveling. That evening, I finalized the report. I added one final section. A summary of recommendations, including immediate removal of executive leadership and referral to external regulators. Then I attached the memo, encrypted the files, and hit send. Not to the board, to an external legal team that had worked with federal auditors. Whistleblower protection included. Because if they were going to try to erase me, I'd make sure I left a trail too loud to ignore. The following morning, I received a call. Not from Thomas. Not from Elena. From a journalist. "Jessica Langford, I'm covering internal whistleblower claims at Vantage Systems. Your name came up. Can we talk?" I didn't answer immediately, because I wasn't ready to go public. Not yet. But the fact that he had my name meant someone was leaking things already, either to shield themselves or to blame me. 2 days after I submitted the report, the CEO called an emergency leadership alignment meeting. Translation, damage control. He booked the entire top floor of the Vantage Systems building. Private dining room, catered breakfast, long oak conference table. The same space they'd used for Thomas's promotion dinner. I walked in exactly at 8:59 a.m., report binder in one hand, and silence wrapped around me like armor. The room was full. Executives, board members, department heads, and Thomas. He was seated near the end in a tailored suit, flipping through his phone like nothing was wrong. The CEO stood at the head of the table, a tight smile stretched across his face. "Jessica," he said, "thanks for joining us. We're here to realign on strategy after your recent documentation." He didn't say investigation. He didn't say whistleblower report. But everyone in the room knew. They'd read the report. They'd seen the charts, the memos, the discrepancies. They were scared. And they should have been. "You've caused quite a stir," the CEO continued, still smiling. "So we thought we'd let you clarify a few things. You know, set the record straight before rumors take hold." I smiled back, calm, professional. "You mean before regulators read the article that's going live in 2 hours?" His face twitched. "Excuse me?" "A journalist reached out," I said, setting the binder on the table. I verified what I could. The rest? They confirmed themselves. Internal leaks, former staff, investor correspondence. The room shifted. Chairs creaked. Coffee cups paused midair. Eyes darted between faces. "Jessica," Elena said gently, "are you sure?" "You hired me to tell the truth," I said. "And the truth doesn't belong in a drawer." I opened the binder. "Let's walk through a few highlights, shall we?" Page 1. Quarterly financial reporting inconsistencies, revenue recognition manipulation. Page 2. Executive stock timing patterns preceding market announcements. Page 3. Projected use of Thomas Langford as strategic fall guy in internal comms. I didn't look at him. Not yet. I let the words hang. The CEO shifted in his seat. "Now, hold on. That's speculation." It's your assistant's memo, I said. Page 31. Your notes are in the margins. Shall I read them? He went quiet. Then I turned to Thomas. Slowly, deliberately. You could have stopped this months ago. You were in the room. You saw the numbers. You knew what they were doing. He didn't respond, but his hands clenched. And instead of speaking up, you stood by while they humiliated me at your promotion dinner. I didn't write that place card, he muttered. No, I said. You just watched me sit down in front of it. The room was frozen. So here's what's going to happen, I said, and I handed Elena a sealed envelope. My resignation, effective immediately. I've accepted a full-time role at a firm that values ethical oversight, and its analysts. I turned to the board. But I'm also submitting a final recommendation. Replace your CEO within 72 hours or I go public, under my real name. That did it. The CEO's mouth opened, ready to bark a response. But Elena raised her hand before he could speak. That won't be necessary, she said, voice even. We've already drafted a transition plan. Jessica, thank you for your service. I gathered my things. As I reached the door, I paused, turned, and looked at the man who had once called me a gold digger nobody. Oh, I said to the CEO, one last thing. I'd check your stock prices, if I were you. And this time, the room went silent. 3 weeks later, the headline read, Vantage CEO steps down amid financial review. Whistleblower report triggers board action. The article didn't name me, but it didn't need to. My phone buzzed nonstop. Former colleagues, analysts, even investors asking if I was available for advisory work. I wasn't. I'd already signed on as Director of Regulatory Strategy at a firm 3 times the size of Vantage, with better ethics and a healthier coffee budget. 1 month later, Claire and I sat on a rooftop watching the sun dip behind the skyline. So, she said, raising her glass. What now? Now? I smiled. Now I stopped shrinking. And Thomas? I shrugged. Still at Vantage, different office, smaller window, no promotion, no headline. Do you think he regrets it? He doesn't have to, I said. His silence already said enough. This story isn't about revenge. It's about recognition. The kind that doesn't come with applause, but with the quiet power of knowing you were right all along. To every woman who's been dismissed, belittled, or underestimated, let them laugh. Let them place you at the kids' table. Then smile. And build the table they'll one day beg to sit at. The first red flag wasn't the sudden 3:30 p.m. meeting invite from operations. It was that I wasn't on the guest list for Friday's all-hands summit. No calendar block, no Zoom link, no just checking in email from my manager. After 8 years, that kind of silence roars louder than any layoff announcement. When I walked into the conference room, they didn't even pretend to care. 3 people, Rick from finance, Angela from HR, and some kid I didn't recognize who looked like he'd just walked out of a data science boot camp. No greeting, no water, just a printed envelope already on the table like a death notice for my career. Mandy, Angela started, tone flat, eyes darting away. We truly appreciate your years of dedication. But due to cost reduction initiatives, Rick cut in, folding his hands like he was auditioning for a corporate villain role. We've made the difficult decision to eliminate your position effective immediately. Eliminate. Like I was a budget line, a recurring expense, a leak in their precious balance sheet. I didn't cry, didn't argue, didn't ask what the severance was. I just looked at the intern, still trying to figure out where to place his hands, and asked, "Did you even look at the accounts I manage?" Rick blinked. This wasn't personal. Strictly financial. We're saving $150,000 this quarter alone. That's a win. A win. The envelope felt warm in my hand. I hadn't even opened it yet, and already I could feel the burn of betrayal rising through my chest. 8 years. 8 years of red-eye flights, holiday weekends sacrificed for quarterly closes, running client calls from emergency rooms and airport bathrooms. 8 years of making their top accounts feel seen, heard, and understood in a way their shiny CRM dashboards never could. And I was now just a cost-saving measure. I walked out with my back straight, badge already deactivated, and a strange silence echoing around me like I'd already been ghosted out of the building. But the real punch didn't land until I reached the lobby and heard them in the break room, laughing. Loud, free, open-mouthed laughter. "Cheers to Rick," someone shouted. "Saved the company $150,000 with one signature." Then someone else added, "Mandy'll be fine. She always looked like a yoga and journalism type. She'll probably start a podcast or something." Cue more laughter. I stood there for 5 seconds too long. Long enough to picture walking back in and slapping the manila envelope across Rick's smug face. But I didn't, because I already had what I needed. See, what Rick didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the expendable employee they just let go, she didn't just manage 38 high-value accounts. She was those accounts. Every renewal, every upsell, every out-of-scope request handled with a personal text, not a help ticket. I'd been the quiet glue holding those contracts together. Client retention, relationship architecture, renewal strategy, all of it. And inside that envelope, stapled behind the generic NDA and templated HR script, was my final gift. The client matrix. The one I built. The one only I knew how to interpret. It listed every contract, soft exit signal, personality note, escalation history, and billing rhythm. It was more than data. It was a map of pressure points, loyalty gaps, and decision makers they didn't even know they should be scared of. And the kicker? They'd included it, stapled it, right into the termination paperwork. No redactions, no watermark, no clue. As if I were just some administrator cleaning up back-end reports. Not the one who built the system they still relied on. I didn't go home right away. I sat in my car, still in the parking garage, envelope open across the passenger seat like the aftermath of a quiet explosion. And I smiled. Not because I had a plan, not yet. But because when someone hands you a loaded weapon, gift-wrapped in legalese and printed on recycled paper, you don't scream. You wait. I looked down at the first tab in the matrix. Q4 at-risk clients. Next to it, needs weekly check-ins. Lost father last month. Mandy only contact he replies to. A note I'd typed just 3 weeks ago. Rick had no idea, but he would. This wasn't revenge. This was reckoning. And I had 48 hours before they even noticed the cracks. Just enough time to decide where to start. I didn't sleep that night. Not from anger, not from sadness. Just stillness. That eerie silence that settles over you when your world tilts and you realize you're not panicking. You're recalculating. At 2:42 a.m., I opened my laptop and scrolled to a folder I hadn't touched in months. Client continuity. It wasn't company property. It was mine. Notes, reminders, draft emails, relationship audits. I'd kept it up out of habit, partly for insurance, partly because I never trusted that anyone else would bother remembering the little things. The important things. Like how Jessica W. from Langley Tech only signs contracts on Thursdays because of some weird superstition. Or how Michael C. at Blusky Energy refuses to do business with anyone who uses bullet points instead of numbered lists. Petty? Maybe. But those quirks were the glue that made them stay. And now I had time. I pulled out a notebook, a real one, paper and ink, and started listing names. Not clients, not contracts. People I'd built trust with. And people they'd handed over to Connor from sales. The same guy who once asked me what client sentiment meant in a meeting. By sunrise, the list was 19 names long, each one marked with 3 columns. Stability, how likely they were to renew. Personal tie, how deeply they were connected to me. Risk trigger, what might make them walk. Some had left subtle clues in recent weeks. Haven't heard from you in a while. Hope you're still our point of contact. Now, I wasn't, but no one told them that. That morning, I took a walk around my block, watched a neighbor plant mums, listened to the breeze whistle through the trees. It was peaceful in the way only forced stillness can be. Then I went back inside, made black coffee, opened my laptop, and started composing the first message. Not a pitch, not even a hint of persuasion. Just, "Hi, Tony. Hope you're doing okay in the middle of Q4 chaos. Just wanted to say it's been a pleasure working with you over the years. Things have changed on my end, but I'm still cheering for your team. Take care and stay in touch. Mandy, no company logo. No forwarding address. Just the soft crack of a door being left open. I sent 5 versions like that. Different names, different touches, all heartfelt, all truthful." Then I waited. By mid-afternoon, the first reply landed. "Wait, what do you mean things have changed? Are you still our rep?" I let it sit for a beat, then typed, "I'm no longer with the company. No. I was informed of the restructure on Thursday. I didn't want to disappear without saying thank you. You've always been a favorite account of mine, Tony." Less than 5 minutes later, "I'm sorry. What?" "No one told us anything. We've got our annual planning call in 2 weeks. Who's taking it now?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Let the silence work. Because here's the thing no exec ever thinks about. Clients don't fire vendors. They fire people. And when the person they trust vanishes, they get nervous. They start looking. By the end of the day, I had 7 more replies. All versions of the same theme. "What's going on? Why weren't we informed? Can you recommend someone else we can work with?" One even said, "You made us feel like a priority. That's hard to replace." That one stuck. I didn't reach out to everyone, not yet. I wasn't trying to cause chaos. I was just reminding people I existed, and letting them ask the questions my old company didn't think to prepare for. By that evening, I'd heard from an old colleague too. Chloe. She was still on the inside. Quiet, smart, watching everything. Her message was short. "Hey, they're freaking out. 2 clients called today asking why you're gone. One left a voicemail asking if you're available directly." Rick looked like he swallowed a stapler. "I'll keep you posted. Stay quiet. This is fun." I didn't smile. Not yet. Because this wasn't revenge. Not exactly. It was something colder, something slower. Erosion. And the cracks were just beginning to show. By Monday morning, my inbox was full. Not job offers, yet. Not even contracts. Just questions, from clients, from colleagues, from vendors who had no idea I was gone until the silence started creeping in like mold between walls. No goodbye email, no handoff, no out-of-office reply. Just gone. One message hit different. "Mandy, your name is still on the internal access list for the vendor portal. Thought you'd want to know before they realize. Also, thank you. For everything you did for our team over the years. You made things easier. We miss that already." That was from Lila, my contact at Halverson and Company. She used to call me the calm in the contract storm. Now she was stuck emailing someone named Trent. Trent, who once forwarded her the wrong Q3 report, addressed to a different client. I didn't respond. But I bookmarked the message. Meanwhile, back at the office I no longer belonged to, things were beginning to unravel. Chloe, my silent eyes on the inside, sent me another message around 10:27 a.m. "Heads up. CFO's been pacing all morning. 3 account managers flagged churn risks in the last 24 hours. Someone said your name in the team meeting." Rick snapped a pen in half. "It's starting." I imagined it vividly. The glass-walled conference room. The nervous glances. The rising temperature as they realized the $150,000 they saved might just cost them millions. The math was simple. They thought they were trimming fat. What they didn't understand was I wasn't fat. I was bone. I didn't just manage accounts. I anchored them. I remembered birthdays. I sent handwritten thank you notes. I tracked budget cycles and procurement quirks with the kind of detail their CRM system couldn't handle. They cut me out without a transition plan. No calls, no coverage, no continuity. And now? Now they were fumbling. At 1:13 p.m., I got another message. This one from a client who'd always been hard to read. Quiet. Private. Never used emojis, never replied right away. But this time? Mandy, we received your note. Thank you for everything. Honestly, without you there, we're unsure about next steps. Thinking of pressing pause until things stabilize. We'll keep you posted. They wouldn't. I knew they wouldn't. That was polite corporate language for we're shopping. I made tea, sat on the porch, let the autumn wind thread through my sleeves as I watched a neighbor rake leaves into a pile only for the wind to scatter them again. That was my old company now. Scrambling, sweeping, only to watch everything blow away. The next morning, Chloe messaged again, this time with urgency. Mandy, they're in full damage control. CMO just canceled a webinar to review client communications. Jenkins, the CEO, is demanding an emergency retention plan. Rick is blaming inadequate knowledge transfer, and Angela's trying to say you didn't give proper offboarding notes. Everyone's pointing fingers. It's a circus. A circus. One I'd performed in for nearly a decade. Now I was the ghost haunting the tent. At 3:44 p.m. it happened. The first official cancellation. I didn't hear it from them. I heard it from Tony, the same procurement lead I'd emailed 2 days earlier. Hey, just a heads up. We've decided not to move forward with Q4 after all. We're reassessing vendors. I'm sure you understand. Also, if you're ever available for consulting, I'd love to talk. He wasn't subtle, and he didn't need to be. Reassessing vendors, that's the phrase that makes executives sweat through their dry-cleaned blazers. And Tony wasn't alone. By dinner, 2 more clients had sent similar messages. They weren't mad. They were hesitant, unsettled. Because that's what happens when trust goes missing. Not overnight, not with an explosion. It's a slow leak, a series of, let's revisit this. We'll get back to you. Let's put a pin in that. And no one at the top knows where it started. But I did. It started when they celebrated cutting $150,000. It started when they popped champagne and toasted to efficiency. And now? Now the bubbles were gone and the glass was cracking. By Wednesday, the fallout was no longer quiet. 2 more clients had paused their Q4 planning sessions. A third requested a refund for a service bundle they claimed was no longer aligned with current expectations. Chloe, still feeding me updates from the inside, sent a message around noon. Jenkins just left the boardroom red in the face. CFO's blaming external interference. They're digging through your offboarding file now like it's a crime scene. HR is whispering about possible IP leaks. I didn't leak anything. I didn't have to. The thing about building trust over 8 years is it's not stored in a cloud drive or a Salesforce instance. It's stored in people. Conversations, eye contact during hard meetings, emails sent at 11:43 p.m. just to make someone's Monday easier. You can't transfer that with a checklist and a forwarding address. And now? They were realizing that too late. Still, I wasn't gloating. In fact, I was hesitating. I wasn't sure what I wanted next. I had options. At least 3 companies had reached out in the past 48 hours asking if I'd be open to freelance guidance or contract support. One of them even offered to send a retainer just to keep me around. But the thought of going back into corporate, just another cog, another team of executives who'd smile while gutting loyalty, made my stomach turn. So I did what I hadn't done in years. I closed my laptop, walked 2 blocks to the local library, found a quiet corner near the windows, and just sat. No phone, no Wi-Fi, just quiet. Somewhere outside, the world was moving fast. Panic emails, failed calls, escalations sent to the wrong inboxes. But here I breathed. I needed to be sure that I wasn't just reacting, that I was actually choosing. That evening, while making dinner, my phone rang. Unknown number, Cleveland area code. I almost didn't pick up, but something in me said, this is one of those moments. Hello? Silence at first, then a breath. Then, Mandy? I recognized the voice instantly. Eli Turner, head of strategy at Veritas Group, one of the fastest-growing consulting firms in the Northeast. We'd crossed paths years ago when my old company was trying to secure a mid-sized tech portfolio. He and I had spent 3 hours in a breakout session arguing over client segmentation strategies, and then bonded over terrible conference coffee. We hadn't spoken since. Mandy, he repeated, please tell me you're not tied up with another firm yet. I blinked. I'm in transition. Good. I've been hearing some noise, he said. Big names, too. Clients jumping, vendors scrambling. Every other sentence starts with, well, Mandy used to handle that, and ends with, now we don't know who to call. I said nothing. I don't usually chase people, he continued, but in this case, I'll make an exception. We've got clients in triage mode. They need steady hands. People who understand more than deliverables and KP is, people who can see around corners. Still, I didn't speak. I'm not offering you a job, he added. Not unless you want one, but I'm offering a platform. Build something here. Consulting, strategy, client reactivation, whatever you want. Total freedom, competitive equity, remote, no red tape, just bring your brain. He paused. I won't ask for an answer right now, but just know, we don't treat legacy like dead weight. We build on it. I sat there, phone warm against my ear, his words hanging like smoke in a quiet kitchen. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't validation. It was a door, one I never expected to open. Send me something, I said finally. Outline, in terms. I'll think about it. You got it, he said. And Mandy? Yeah? They made a mistake. A big one. We've known that for years. When I hung up, I didn't dance or cry or scream. I just stood there, quietly stirring the pasta in the pot, letting the steam rise. The funny thing about being discarded, it makes you remember what you're made of. And slowly, so very slowly, I started to feel it again. Not anger, not pride, clarity. Because now I had what they never gave me. A choice. And that, more than any title, bonus, or office view, is power. By Thursday morning, everything was quiet on the outside. No more LinkedIn messages, no texts from clients. Even Chloe hadn't sent a whisper from inside HQ. I figured either they were patching the leaks, or the ship was taking on water faster than anyone could speak. I'd spent the night reviewing the consulting proposal from Eli Turner at Veritas Group. It was smart, flexible, generous. No corporate fluff. No titles or structures designed to box me in. Just resources, autonomy, and room to build something meaningful. I hadn't signed yet, but I knew I would. Not for the money, not for the title, because it aligned with something I'd almost forgotten I needed. Respect. Still, I hadn't reached out to any clients since Monday. I didn't need to. Because by now, they were reaching out to each other. That's how it works. One procurement lead vents to another. A passing comment during a conference call. Have you noticed something weird? Email chain. Suddenly, everyone's asking the same question. Where's Mandy? At 10:08 a.m., I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something told me to pick up. Mandy Thompson? Yes. This is Dana from Avery Capital. You used to handle our quarterly reporting at your old firm? I remember. How can I help? There was a pause. Then she said it. Blunt, tired, and completely honest. We want out. We're not getting answers. The reporting's late. The replacement team doesn't understand our workflow, and our COO's losing patience. You made it work. You got us. Is there Any way we can work with you directly again? And just like that, it began. I didn't promise anything. I told her I'd forward her contact to Veritas and that someone would be in touch. I stayed vague, professional, careful. But when I hung up, something in me shifted. Not because of the call itself, because of what it meant. They didn't just notice I was gone. They felt it. And that, more than anything, confirmed what I already suspected. They hadn't fired a position. They'd amputated a connection. At 11:03 a.m., Chloe finally messaged me again. Okay, now it's a mess. Avery Capital just pulled their Q4 project. CFO is demanding to know how many more might follow. Marketing is in lockdown. Legal's reviewing your termination paperwork to see if they can claim IP infringement. But there's nothing. You didn't take anything. They gave it to you. Also just overheard Jenkins say, find out what she's doing. And where. I sipped my coffee, eyes on the window, watching a squirrel dig into a planter outside. He looked frantic, clueless, just like Rick from finance probably did right now. They'd given me Exhibit A, my own client matrix. They stapled it to my severance packet and called it offboarding. They didn't watermark it, didn't password protect it, didn't redact a thing. And now? Now they were trying to stuff the genie back in the bottle. Too late. That afternoon, I sat at my kitchen table and started a list. Not of clients this time, of consequences. Every time I'd been asked to stay late without acknowledgement. Every promotion I was in the running for that never came. Every time they used my work in a pitch without my name on it. I wasn't angry anymore. I was clear. And clarity, I've learned, is dangerous in the hands of someone who's been quiet for too long. At 4:32 p.m., Chloe sent one last message before logging off for the day. Emergency meeting tomorrow. Full executive team. Subject line just says, client retention and immediate risk response. Jenkins looked like he hadn't slept. Rick canceled his trip to Chicago. They're scrambling, Mandy. One of the VPs called your departure a strategic blind spot. I didn't respond. I didn't need to, because what they called a blind spot had always been their choice. They didn't see me because they chose not to. And now, without warning, the space I once filled was echoing. Not because I was loud, but because I had mattered more than they were willing to admit. Until now. Friday started quiet. I brewed my usual cup of tea. Earl Grey, no sugar, just heat. I didn't check the news. Didn't scroll social media. Didn't even touch my email at first. Because when you know the storm's already coming, there's no need to chase the thunder. At 9:06 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number, my old area code. I knew who it was before I answered. Hello? A pause. Just breathing. Then, Mandy. His voice was taut, strained. The kind of voice a man uses when he's trying to sound calm but already knows he's lost control. It was Jenkins, the CEO. I didn't say anything. Just let the silence hang. I just got out of an emergency board meeting, he said. We're trying to get a handle on some unexpected developments. Several key accounts are... He hesitated, searching for the right phrase. Reevaluating their contracts. I stayed quiet. He continued. We've been told you've had contact with some of these clients. I have, I said flatly. I sent a few messages, just thank you notes. Nothing more. Well, it seems those notes stirred up some confusion. His voice tightened. Clients are saying they didn't know you were let go. Some have even assumed we were being dishonest. Were you? I asked. He didn't answer that, just exhaled hard. We need to clarify the nature of those communications and retrieve any materials you may have taken with you. There's nothing to retrieve, Jenkins, I said. You handed it to me. Exhibit A, stapled right into the severance packet. Do you remember? A beat, then quieter. That was internal documentation. It was my work, I said. My notes, my system. You never protected it. You didn't even watermark the printout. You just called it Exhibit A and shoved it in an envelope. Mandy, look, he said, his voice cracking under pressure. We're dealing with real losses. Contracts falling through. Clients ghosting us. People are talking. Vendors, partners, even competitors. This could spiral. It already has, I said. He went quiet, then asked, almost pleading, "What the hell did you do?" I took a sip of my tea. I did what you should have done, I said. I treated people like they mattered. You're sabotaging us. Number, I'm existing. I'm responding when people reach out. That's all. You've put us in a vulnerable position. I smiled. You put yourselves there the minute you decided saving $150,000 was worth more than trust, than loyalty, than people. I could hear him swallow on the other end. This isn't personal, Mandy. It was a business decision. And this, I said, is the business consequence. Then I added, calm and quiet, check your email. He paused. What? It should have landed a few minutes ago. He must have pulled it up. I heard the mouse clicking. Then nothing. The email I'd sent was short. Just a list. 38 client names. Each one labeled with a current status. Paused. Reevaluating. No response since handover. Considering external consultant. Already in contact. No threats. No ultimatums. Just data. Reality. Truth. And at the bottom, one line. This is what trust looks like, when it walks away quietly. Back on the line, Jenkins finally spoke. This is coordinated. You're working with someone. I didn't answer. He snapped, "You've ruined us." No, I said softly. You did that when you forgot what I was worth. I just let the numbers catch up to the truth. And with that, I ended the call. No screaming, no vengeance speech, just one quiet click. I closed my laptop and sat back. Outside, the leaves were falling slow and golden. The air smelled like November, sharp, smoky, honest. That afternoon, I signed the contract with Veritas. Eli sent back a one-line response. Let's build something better. And we did. Within 6 months, 5 of my old accounts had transitioned to us, legally, willingly. No force, no tricks. Just trust. I never posted anything about what happened. Never named names. I didn't need to. The people who mattered already knew. And the ones who didn't? Well, they were still wondering how everything fell apart so quickly. Let them. Because in the end, I didn't burn the bridge. I rebuilt it somewhere else. And I made damn sure the foundation was stronger this time.